As of right now, we are down 33% in hate crimes in the city against all identity groups. But what we do see, obviously, is these COVID-related crimes. As of right now, we have 23 COVID-related hate crimes. One of them affected the Jewish community, and the other 22 affected the Asian community. We've made arrests in 15 out of those 23 cases, and we're still working on the rest. Our first case came in on March 10th. And we solved 6 out of the 8 cases very quickly in the first month of COVID. The other 2 cases we couldn't solve because the victims did not want to speak to us. They were intimidated by the police, cultural issues, fear of immigration, whatever their reason was, they didn't want to work on the investigation. So we had 2 cases that could not be solved. Stu Liu, working with Chief Detectives Rodney Harrison, came up with this idea that what might help these investigations is creating this liaison unit. Right off the bat, they worked on one of those 2 cases and helped us solve it. So right there on the first 8, we solved 7 out of 8 quickly.
It's not really about those 20-something cases. It's more about the crimes that goes unreported. And it's not just hate crime cases. Hate crime is the impetus of creating this task force, but we will help on any case. You know, certain cases which is not considered hate crime, but may be perceived as a hate crime, like that case in Brooklyn where the lady was set on fire. That on the surface may seem like a hate crime. But in fact, it was something completely different. This lady only made the report because her family had convinced her to do it. And once she made the report, she was very hesitant to follow through with the investigation. I sent one of my young detectives over who spoke in her language, and she opened up and she was able to give us a full story, detailed description, and she became very cooperative. That was the difference in solving that case. We made 2 arrests on that. That wasn't a hate crime. But the point is that we're not just about hate crimes. We're about putting the right people to solve the crime with that special skill set.
I work with the NYPD Legal Bureau. I work with federal partners also, and I work with those district attorneys on a first-name basis, 24 hours a day, on what we need to prove this is a hate crime, and do we have enough motivating factors to say that this was done because of the identity of the victim. The Chinese grandmother case that Inspector Liu mentioned also. Just as an aside, I see somebody in the chat box wrote about it must be a hate crime because who carries kerosene around? There was no kerosene involved in that case. That's an inaccurate fact that went out there. This was motivated by them being on the property. I can't go too far into it because they are juveniles and it is still a pending case. But we have to look at identity substitution. Would the perpetrators have done this if the victim wasn't Asian? Possibly. Would they have done it if she was a different age? Possibly. We can't just look at the fact of her age and her identity as the reason why this happened. The other cases mentioned, I know somebody mentioned the Japanese pianist up in northern Manhattan. There were other circumstances in that. Working with the DA's office, the hate crimes bureau chief for the Brooklyn DA's office always goes into a story of what are the factors before our crime happens. Let's take into a case a road rage example, and people are cutting each other off. Maybe there's a car accident, maybe there's not. Cutting each other off, cursing at each other. They pull to the side of the road and engage in an argument. Then it turns into a physical assault, and during that assault, somebody uses a slur. What is the motivating factor for that assault to happen? Is it the identity of the person? Or is it the fact that they just engaged in this road rage accident and they're already fighting with each other?